Hello, brothers and sisters. I hope you're well. So just we made a video regarding the situation in Congo, providing you with an update. Today we'll be talking about something that is really important and is going to be focused on Rwanda. Okay, I haven't done any video focused on Rwanda specifically, but today I'll be really touching this. I'll be talking about it. Okay, so the first thing I would like to analyze is what it has been the global response when it comes to the situation in the eastern part of the Congo and the actions of Rwanda. Okay, I know I touched on this just on yesterday's video, but today I'll touch further on this. So the main thing to understand here is the global response has been tough. Okay, so Western countries and international organizations had expressed their point of view, their positions in the situation in between Rwanda and Congo. Okay, so we have here information from AA.com about the United States, which is one of the main countries that used to support Rwanda through foreign aid and through foreign direct investment. So the US has imposed sanctions on Rwandan officials, as I mentioned yesterday. This guy called James Karabere, okay, and they did that due to his involvement in the DRC conflict. So the US is Rwanda's largest donor, providing around 174 million in aid every year. As you can see here, this article, if you want to go and read it, it clearly states that the US on Thursday they imposed sanctions on Minister of State for Regional Integration James Karabere and a senior leader of the rebel group for the alleged roles in escalating the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, other countries from the European Union have also come together to condemn the actions of Rwanda in the eastern part of the Congo. Obviously, there are many people that think that Rwanda is not involved, but many members of the N23 are part of the Rwandan army, and the Rwandan army has supported a number of attacks by the M23 in the eastern part of the Congo. They have provided logistic, they have coordinated the attacks, and they have carried out, as I mentioned yesterday, amphibious operations in order to support these M23 troops. Now, if you look at the M23 individuals, if you're good at analyzing African phenotypes, you'll see in the face that these individuals are mainly from Rwanda. You can see in the face, okay? Although there are many Eastern people from Eastern Congo that look very similar to Rwanda, due to for this is due to obvious reasons, obviously, because many of them are refugees in the eastern part of the Congo. Many of them have been there for some time already, and many of them are Congolese nationals already. But you will see a difference between the Bantu uh, phase or phenotypes from the Congolese from the western part and southern part of Congo, and then the individuals that are placed in let's say Kivu. Okay, many of them are refugees from Rwanda. So the European Union has also sanctioned nine individuals, including a Rwandan army official for human rights violations in the eastern part of the Congo. And the EU has been a key contributor to Rwanda's development program. And this is something really important to understand. Okay, as you can see on this article here, this guy, Thomas Feshi, he clearly explains um, how the EU has sanctioned certain individuals from Rwanda to address the N23 abuses. Sanctions on more senior officials also needed. So they're advocating for more, and more sanctions. Okay, and obviously I say this all the time, but the Rwandan people actually think that they're not involved in the Congo and they have nothing to do with the issues that are taking place in the Congo, and they're actually blaming the Congolese government for this. Obviously, this is from people that live in Rwanda, but those who escape the country and are outside, they clearly know what's happening and they heavily criticize the government. But you can see here The article says on Friday, the European Union imposed targeted financial and travel sanctions against 7 people from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, one from Rwanda, and one from Tanzania for acts that constitute serious human rights violations and abuses in the eastern part of the Congo. Okay, their most newly sanctioned individuals are leaders or senior commanders of known abusive armed groups operating in eastern Congo's North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri provinces, including the Rwandan-backed M23. Okay, so you can read this article from Human Rights Watch. Now, other countries from Europe, let's say big countries from Europe that have really strong economic power within the European Union. One of them is Germany. Okay, Germany has summoned their Rwandan ambassador and they have suspended negotiations on foreign aid to Rwanda, which has been a major recipient of German development assistance. So you can see Rwanda receives quite a lot of foreign aid from European countries, and many of them have been stopping this aid to Rwanda, okay, due to the involvement in the conflict in the Congo. We also have France, who have been pushing for a UN Security Council resolution to name Rwanda as a supporter of the M23 rebels. And France has historically provided aid for infrastructure and governance projects in Rwanda. And bear in mind that there are a number of resolutions that France have been blocking, okay? A number of sanctions as well against Paul Kagame that France has been blocking, okay? Which is really strange because France historically has been a supporter of the Hutus, all right? And this country supported the Hutu regime when the first G crime took place, and then they continue supporting the Hutu refugees in the eastern part of the Congo, which was the main excuse for Rwandan Kagame to cross the border into his neighbor country and continue attacking the Hutu population and obviously taking control over mineral resources. So France has changed basically now with Emmanuel Macron. They have been supporting Rwanda for a long time, okay? And when it came to the negotiations of Bukavu when the city fell, France actually had a Emmanuel Macron actually had a call with Mr. Paul Kagame, and he spoke with Felix Tshisekedi as well. And in these talks, he did ask Paul Kagame to remove his troops from Bukavu in exchange of something from Congo. However, obviously, the Congo did not accept the French terms, and then the M23 rebels returned again to Bukavu. So you can see how France and Rwanda they coordinating this attack, how both countries are involved. But now, for some reason, France have voted against Rwanda, okay, and they're forcing, kind of trying to force the UN and other countries to name Rwanda as a supporter of the M23 rebel groups. And these, I will explain this later, okay. Now you have also the United Kingdom, which is a really strong country, which is not part of the European Union anymore, but is in the EU. So United Kingdom has also summoned the Rwanda's envoy and warned its citizens to leave the areas affected by the conflict. So UK citizens. However, the UK maintains around 120 million contract with Rwanda, which is for the purpose of Rwanda taking asylum seekers from the UK. Okay, so they continue to support Rwanda somehow diplomatically. They continue to be a diplomatic cooperation here between the UK and Rwanda. However, the UK foreign minister yesterday or 2 days ago, sorry, he went really hard on Rwanda and he told them that they need to stop this. It's completely unacceptable what is going on in the eastern part of the Congo and their involvement in this. And I'll explain to you later why. Although I explained yesterday, I'll explain again. So now, another country that has very strong historical links with Rwanda and the Congo, okay, is Belgium. So Belgium is the main country that led the EU efforts to consider additional sanctions against Rwanda. And Belgium has historical ties to Rwanda and provides financial and technical support to the country as well. So as you can see, Belgium is really angry with what's happening in the eastern part of the Congo, and now they decided to go against Rwanda for specific reasons. So the United Nations in general has also drafted a resolution demanding Rwanda to withdraw its troops from the eastern DRC and stop supporting the M23. So the UN and its agencies, they also contribute to Rwanda's humanitarian and development needs. So this draft resolution has passed now, okay? all the members of the UN, obviously, except from Rwanda, they have accepted this. Okay, so you also need to consider that the UN has a peacekeeping mission in the eastern part of the Congo, and they've seen the involvement on Rwanda firsthand. All right, the UN, the MONUSCO, and all the organizations, they are there, they are present, and they've seen how the Rwandans, the M23, they cross the border into Goma in order to take over the city. Okay, so some UN members have been unalived by the Rwandan troops, and these include a number of South African UN peacekeepers as well. Today, you have around 130, 140 South African UN troops that they have been encircled by the M23 at the Goma International Airport, and they're not even allowing them to get out of that place until a settlement is reached with South Africa. Now, what has been the condemnation from African countries towards Rwanda? So obviously, the first country that has heavily condemned the actions of Rwanda in the eastern part of the Congo is South Africa. So South Africa accused Rwanda of backing the M23 and warned of military action after the death of around 13 South African peacekeepers, as I just mentioned you now. These are peacekeepers. These are not active soldiers. Although they keep peacekeepers fired back because they were attacked, and they managed to eliminate a large number of M23 rebels and Rwandan troops. 13 of them lost their life. The bodies now, they have been returned to South Africa, and obviously the South Africans are mourning. But this has opened a big division between South Africa and Rwanda, where you have many South African citizens as saying that the actual president is very weak, and his response towards Rwanda, towards Paul Kagame, towards the unaliving of these 13 South African soldiers have been extremely weak. But obviously, President of South Africa, Mr. Ramasova, sorry, I never get this name, but he is using his diplomatic links, obviously, to tighten the grip in Rwanda. And this is what you always do. You first start diplomatically, and then you, if it's necessary, you have to use force. But as you can see, many of the moves from this international community, from the countries, have been due to the pressure from many countries, mainly from South Africa. Okay. Now, you have Burundi, which is a neighboring country to Rwanda. They also they have a really long border with Rwanda, and as I told you yesterday, the autochthonous population, they have similarities with Rwanda because they both have Hutus and Tutsis. Okay, so obviously these are not supporting Rwanda, and they accuse Rwanda of supporting the RED Tabara rebel group that they have been creating many problems in the northern part of Burundi. And obviously, Burundi is supporting Congo because they don't want these rebels to gain more support from Rwanda and other countries and be able to overrun the country. Okay. Obviously, one of the main criticism it comes from the DRC itself. Okay. So the DRC has directly cut diplomatic ties with Rwanda after the M23 rebels captured Goma, and they call Rwandans. Well, they actually exposed the Rwandan involvement in this, and they also called the Rwandan involvement in with the M23 and the taking of two key cities in Kivu a declaration of war. Okay, so then you have the East African community. They urge ceasefire and they encourage negotiations between the DRC and the M23. It's like, yo, right? DRC has already said that they're not going to have any negotiations with these individuals they consider terrorists, okay? These rebel groups, because they have been committing crimes against their own citizens, and they want to have conversations with the direct financiers of this group, okay? So although there was a meeting in which Mr. Felix Tshisekedi was invited and he did not attend for obvious reasons, okay? As you can see, the East African community, they have been supporting Rwanda more than Congo. And not only that, there was a meeting in Kenya where the M23 and other rebel groups they did have a meeting and they did come together to launch the operations that they launched in the eastern part of the Congo after having that meeting in Kenya. So Kenya now is being heavily criticized internally and externally for their role in the problems that are taking place in the eastern part of the Congo today, and the support for Rwanda and Uganda in this. Okay. Then you have the Southern African Development Community, which is acronym is SADC. They deploy a peacekeeping mission in the DRC to stabilize the region, and obviously this group is against the Rwandan activities in the eastern part of the Congo. So we also need to understand who supports Rwanda, okay? Because Rwanda is not alone in this. There are a number of countries, although there are few, there are a number of countries that support Rwanda. So despite the international criticism, Rwanda still enjoys diplomatic, economic, and security support from several countries. So the strong supporters of Rwanda, obviously, as I said before, the United Kingdom, it has to be considered a strong supporter because it continues to have this 120 million asylum deal with Rwanda, which is signaling an economic and diplomatic cooperation despite the summoning of the Rwanda's envoy over the DRC conflict. Okay, then you have the UAE, which is the United Arab Emirates. They have invested in Rwanda in mining, logistic, real estate sector. There are many UAE companies that are investing in the country. And obviously, the investment in minerals, knowing that these minerals come from the DRC and not from Rwanda, it clearly shows a strong support from the UAE to Rwanda. And the UAE doesn't only support Rwanda and certain individuals linked to rebel groups that are actually taking these minerals from the Congo. They also support another conflict in the north of Africa, okay, which is the conflict in Sudan. So you have these rapid support forces, the detachment of the Sudanese army, that they're creating havoc all over the country, all right? That they have a meeting in Kenya and they manage to consolidate some kind of government. And Kenya wants to recognize this government created by this group, okay, the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, sorry, and they have created a government somehow, okay, and the UAE heavily support these individuals as well. Obviously, it's also related to the mining industry in Sudan, which is one of the countries that has a lot of gold, okay, so there's a huge interest in this country. Then you have Turkey, okay, or Turkey, like they want to be called. So Turkey, they do provide military equipment and training to the Rwandan troops, and they maintain a strong diplomatic ties. As you know, there is company in Turkey, I think it's Baykar. They do manufacture drones, okay, flying drones that they can attack targets, all right? So these drones have been used in Ukraine. They were completely ineffective against the Russian defenses. It has been used as well in the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which was quite effective, and it's been used today in the northern part of Syria between the pro-Turkish forces and the Turkish forces against against the enemies there. Okay, between them you have the Kurds and other groups. So Rwanda, the president of Rwanda, Mr. Paul Kagame, did visit Turkey, and he took a picture in front of one of these drones. And there are reports that one of these drones have been used to conduct attacks in the eastern part of the Congo in support of the M23 rebels. So when you have Rwanda saying that they're not participating in this conflict, please read the reports because they have been actively contributing and supporting the M23. Then you also have other countries that support the Rwanda, not as much as Turkey, the UAE, the United Kingdom, but somehow they continue supporting. And these are countries that they don't really have a position in this conflict. They want both parties to find a peaceful settlement. But one of them is Russia. Okay, Russia has not really condemned Rwanda and has supplied it with military equipment. And they have aligned with Rwanda as well in some diplomatic issues, and Rwanda has aligned with Russia in some diplomatic issues as well. Obviously, the Russian envoy to the UN did heavily condemn, okay, the actions of Rwanda in the DRC, and they asked the Rwandan troops to withdraw from the eastern part of the DRC. However, the economic and the military ties with Rwanda continue. Then you have also China, okay, who's Rwanda's largest trade partner, which they are investing in, like in roads, in energy projects. They're investing in construction, and obviously we know the Chinese approach when it comes to other nations. They do provide money, they do provide investment, but they do not get involved in internal politics of the country. However, this is a conflict between two clients. Therefore, China is trying to find a peaceful resolution between the DRC and Rwanda. Okay. At the same time, there's also strong geopolitical indications that say that China needs somehow to find a resolution between these two countries in order to continue benefiting from the mining activities in the Congo, because there is a massive project which I will touch later that could undermine the involvement of China in this. Okay. Now you have some neutral strategic partners that support Rwanda as well, although they have criticized the country. You have the United States that they have sanctioned these Rwandan officials, but they continue to provide 174 million dollars in aid, and they see Rwanda as a key regional security ally. Not only that, I believe that recently the US, due to the burning of the US embassy in Kinshasa, they did stop issuing visas to like Congolese people, and I think they also trying to stop foreign aid to Congo. So as you can see, uh, the US is condemning Rwanda on one side, but on the other side, they're also attacking Congo. And bear in mind that there's also an arms embargo in Congo that have been there for many years to avoid the Congolese supplying weapons to these Mai fighters in the east, or to the Wazalendo people, or to, according to them, armed militias in the eastern part of the Congo. So the Congolese government, somehow their hands are tied because they cannot obtain the weapons they need because they have money, but as like crucial weapons that they might need for this conflict, like artillery, for example, like missiles, like more fighter jets, like helicopters. These are things that they cannot buy directly. Okay, although they have some of it, they cannot buy directly due to the sanctions that they have imposed in the country. Now you also have France, although they have been criticizing Rwanda heavily, okay, they continue to engage with Rwanda economically. The African Union, obviously, they urge Rwanda to withdraw from the DRC, but they have not taken any punitive action as they always do. Okay, African Union, United Nations, they're pretty much the same thing. Then you have Uganda. Uganda, historically, they ally with Rwanda through tensions. Although there are tensions between the two countries when it comes to trade and border security, Uganda has been one of the main countries that have supported rebel groups in the eastern part of the Congo. And these two countries, they're pretty much together, okay? I'm talking about the leaders, not necessarily the population, okay? As I told you before, the population of Uganda, many of them do not agree with the action of the president, but the president, the army that holds a tight grip in the country itself, they do align with Rwanda in many issues, okay? As compared to the Rwandan population, for example, that the majority support the actions of the president, because it seems like there is some kind of tightening when it comes to information getting into Rwanda, and these individuals are completely unaware of what the president is doing, what the president history is, and what the troops are doing outside of the country. As the president says once in an interview, they don't know. Anyways, we also have Ethiopia, which maintains a strong diplomatic and economic ties with Rwanda. Okay, and these countries, in terms of ethnicity, they're pretty much the same. Okay, so this one thing that is important to discuss here, okay, and is how the international reaction has affected the Rwandan economy. Okay, and give me 1 second here. So for these, you can pull out data from the IMF, from the World Bank, from a Statista, and from other sources that will help you understanding how much does Uganda rely on foreign direct investment and foreign aid from countries like the USA and others. Okay, so now let's have a look at how much aid does Rwanda receive. Okay, so this is a map that shows you, well, this is a graph actually that shows you how much aid does Rwanda receive from the different agencies in the US for different projects. Okay, and I'll go through these projects. So Rwanda has received approximately 1.3 billion in foreign aid. That was like the 2021 figure. There are more recent figures, but the amount of aid they receive have been reduced significantly. Okay, but the 2021 is the one I found more reliable because the most recent ones I don't think that they're accurate. Okay, so with the US being the largest donor, as you can see here, there has been a reduction of foreign aid due to the diplomatic tensions that could significantly impact Rwanda's budget and development projects. However, Rwanda somehow is been working to reduce its dependency on aid, obviously for obvious reasons. They have done this through economic growth and economic diversification. So I used 2024 data for this from the World Bank. Okay, so the key economic indicators that I found, obviously the main one, although I don't agree with this measure, is GDP per capita. The GDP per capita in Rwanda is among the lowest in the region. Okay, it's around $1,145 per capita, and this is one of the lowest in the region, but it's actually quite good for the country itself. Okay, although there's not, the population in Rwanda is not as large as in the Congo and many other countries, but you can see the per capita is 1,145. Now the unemployment rate in Rwanda is around 16%, and it keeps growing every year. Now with this reduction on foreign aid and with the sanctions that are imposing, this will get worse. It will deteriorate. Okay, so mainly like the young population will be the most affected by this. So it's 16% and it's predicted to increase at 20% by next year. Now, the cost of living in Rwanda is estimated around $500 to $700 per month, and this is based in the consumption in the capital in Kigali, which is significantly higher compared to other places in Rwanda. But obviously, they gain the highest income when it comes to Rwanda, and it's the most developed place in Rwanda as well. And when you look at Rwanda, the main city they will show you is Kigali. But when you get out of that city, it's pretty much like many other African countries. Okay, so the main revenue sources of Rwanda. Let me move into this 1 second. As you can see here, the poverty haircut ratio is $2.15 a day. Okay, the total population as 2023 is around 14 million people. Okay, in Rwanda, and the population growth annually is 2.2. Okay, they have a negative figure when it comes to net migration. The current GBP, and this is the country, okay, is 14.1, and this is in billion. Okay, as you can see here, it has been growing significantly from the year 2000 all the way to the year 2024. So it's a huge improvement, to be honest. If you consider the fact that it came directly from the G crime and the civil war that they did devastate the country. However, the GDP growth annually, as you can see, it hasn't been that stable. Okay, year by year, it has been going up, going down. Obviously, in this year, in 2020, 2021, due to COVID, this had a huge impact on it. Okay, now the unemployment rate, you can see, is 12.4%, as you can see here. The inflation based on consumer prices is 19.8, which is growing. It keeps growing and is predicted to continue growing, as you can see here in this chart. Sorry, that's 2023. Apologies. So you can see here this data, you can get it from the World Bank. Okay, you can click on it and it'll give you a more detailed um more detailed analysis of the graph. Okay, then on the IMF there's also quite a lot of data that you can access. All right, do your own research. Would you be able to see information, more up-to-date information? As you can see it here, this is updated as of the year 2025, the current year in which we are at the moment. And you can see here the population is 14.16. So I look at 2023 data. This is 2025. There have been an increase in the population, as you can see from this. Okay, you can also access the data when you click on the graphs, and you can see from 1980 the population has been increasing. Okay, not as much compared to other African countries, and obviously they have problems of overpopulation in Rwanda, in Kigali. Okay, and this is one of the main reasons why they're trying to find more territory in the eastern part of the Congo. There are cases where you've seen Rwandan nationals moving into Goma and into other Congolese places, taking lands, taking people's properties, and moving there, which is pretty much ethnic cleansing. Okay, great. So let's continue with the data. Now, the main revenue sources of Rwanda, okay, we need to understand where they get the money from. So one is the service sector, which is almost half of the GDP of the country, the gross domestic product, which is around 49%, okay, which is the largest contributor. Give me a second because there is another. Uh, uh, you can also access the OEC, okay, which will show you exactly what are the main exports for the country. Bear in mind that this is for 2023. I didn't pay to get the most actual data, but it tells you who are the main destinations for the exports. It also tells you what are the biggest exports. You can see here gold, which Rwanda lacks gold. They don't have gold mines. They don't have too many, but obviously we know exactly where it comes from. But you can see here, this is one of the major exports of the country, which is 65.6%. And many of these, or a lot of these, goes to the UAE, as I told you before. But there are other minerals here, as you can see, niobium, tantalum, vanadium, and zirconium ore, tin ore, and others that they also export to other countries. Okay. Obviously, cobalt. I don't know why it's not showing here, but by the 2023 year, Rwanda was one of the biggest exporters of cobalt to the world. Okay, and obviously this was a smuggle from Congolese mines into Rwanda. Okay. Now, Satoyu, the service sector, is one of the main revenue sources of Rwanda, okay? And this is mainly driven by wholesale and retail trade, which is around 19%. This indicates a strong domestic consumption, okay? As you can see here, the gross national expenditure of Rwanda has been increasing ever since the 1960s. Okay, it has increased significantly to 18.83 trillion. Okay, this figure shows you the consumption of the locals, of the people in the country. Okay, and this is based on the on the currency. Okay, and I told you it's increasing quite a lot, which means that the Rwandans are investing money in the country. Okay. Now you have the ratio of government expenditure to gross domestic product. These for 2019 to 2029. Okay, so some of these years, obviously the future years, but you can see in 2024, which has already been the year is done already, but I think it's the most accurate one is 29.92%. This is actually the amount of money that the government invests in their own country, in their own infrastructure. So you can see 29.92% of the total GDP of the country is invested on this. These are services for the people, the construction of roads and things like that, which is quite good. Okay. So out of the service sectors, you also have hotels and restaurants, which constitute around 17%. Then financial services, 15%, telecommunications, 19%, and transport activities, 8%. Then you also have the industry sector, which is around 20% of the GDP of the country, and it did experience 8% growth. Okay. Some of these industry sector is composed of mining and quarrying, which is around 26%. And as you saw on this graphic here, okay, from the OAC, Rwanda is a significant exporter of tin, tantalum, and other minerals. Then Rwanda also have electricity production, which is around 20% of this industry sector um, growth. Then you have manufacturing, which is around 5%, and then chemical, rubber, and plastic products, metal products, machinery, and equipment, which is around 14%. Then, very important, you also have the agricultural sector, which is supported by FDI, which stands for foreign direct investment from other countries. Okay, you have the export crops, which is around 16%, which is driven by a 22% surge in coffee production. Be careful here. Be careful here. As you can see here, coffee production is 6.62% of the export of Rwanda, same as tea. Lot of these coffee and tea production is produced in the Congo, okay? And there has been a surge of 22% due to the use of Congolese territories to export these. In fact, I think some of these coffee and tea, they are banned from being exported from the Congo to other countries, okay? Then you had food and crops, which is around 2%. Then one of the main sectors in which Rwanda makes quite a lot of money as well is the tourism and foreign investments, okay? You've seen quite a lot of videos from Rwandan patriots basically showing you how beautiful the city is and how American and other global artists are visiting the country, how they are promoting sport events, F1 and things like that, okay? And there was recently a concert by an American singer, okay, John Legend or something like that, which everyone is showing and they're really proud of it, which is okay. You know, singers are not always aware of the political problems. But tourism remains a vital component of Rwanda's economy, serving as the largest source of foreign exchange earnings. So the country has attracted significant foreign investment with major international hotel brands and conference centers, enhancing its reputation as a regional hub. Then you have the military expenditure. So the total military expenditure in Rwanda, it was around 256 million in 2023. Okay, this accounts approximately for 2.3% of the GDP of the country. So Rwanda has been increasing its military budget in response to the regional instability and its growing role in the African security operations. Okay, so bear in mind that the 2.3% of GDP does not really reflect the actual investment in the military. You also need to add here the salary of all these individuals that are a part of the N23 and they are in the eastern part of the Congo. Bear this in mind, okay? Now, the government, they're also spending the country, obviously. So in around 2022, that's the most accurate data I could find. Rwanda's public debt decreased from 72.3% of GDP to 67.1% in GDP, and that was 2023. And the government expenditure was around 22.76% of the GDP. So while losing aid could strain Rwanda's budget, it's improving its economic position, and this is due to the reliance on the natural resources and the growing service sectors that might help offset some of these losses from these countries that have imposed sanctions and they are limiting the amount of aid that they will provide to Rwanda. So Rwanda faces increasing international pressure over its involvement and support of the M23 rebels in the Congo. So there are Western nations, African governments, and regional organizations that have criticized its actions, and they are imposing these sanctions against Rwanda, which is also leading to diplomatic tensions. So while China and Russia they advocate for peace, and let's say Russia pretty much remains silent, okay, the suspension or reduction of aid could have financial consequences in Rwanda. So, however, Rwanda still has strong allies, particularly the UK, the UAE, Turkey, China, and Russia. Somehow, ensuring a continued economic and military support. So the US and France have taken a mixed approach, criticizing Rwanda while maintaining economic ties, and then regionally, Uganda have support from, sorry, Rwanda has support from Uganda and Ethiopia and other strategic partners like Kenya, for example. Economically, Rwanda has made significant progress, but challenges like the low GDP per capita, as explained to you earlier, high unemployment, and the rising cost of living could create a bigger problem in the future. More now where the foreign aid is decreasing significantly. So while aid reduction could impact the country, its growing services, the stolen mining stuff, and tourism could offer some resilience to the Rwandan economy. So the Rwandan 256 million military budget highlights its prioritization for defense. So they give priority to the defense of the country despite the economic challenges. And this put Rwanda in a really difficult position here because they're forced to use aid money or the revenues of the state in the military because they're engaged in the eastern part of the Congo and they have to continue financing and supporting these um, um, M23 rebels in the Congo, their own troops that are in the Congo, their own troops that are in Burundi as well, and the rebel troops that they support in Burundi as well. So you can see here, they have to invest quite a lot of money in the military, and this could lead to significant problems in the future. So the situation remains volatile, with the potential for further escalation or diplomatic resolutions in the coming months or the coming days, because things are changing very quickly on this. Okay, now I wanted to touch on something really important after looking at Rwanda and the potential consequences of the reduction of aid. Okay, there is a significant, very significant threat that is coming from the western part of Africa, and this country is Angola. Okay, Angola is the country in which I was born. Okay, so it's really close to me. Although we are ethnically Congolese because we're from the north, we're from a region called Uige, which is a border region between Congo and Angola, and the majority of my family live in Congo. Okay, so there is a project that it was started by the Biden administration. I wanted to touch on this because I superficially touched on it yesterday, but I want to get deep into this today. This is called the Lobito Corridor, okay? And this plays a strategic role in the regional dynamics between Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and broader geopolitical interests from other countries. So while Rwanda is not directly part of the corridor, okay, the infrastructure project impacts regional trade, mineral exports, and the power struggle of the DRC resources, which are central to the current tensions. And this explains a lot about the reasons why Rwanda is investing heavily on military, and they're also investing heavily on these rebel groups to take control over the eastern part of the Congo and the minerals that are there because of this. So the Lobito Corridor is a major infrastructure project linking the minerals or the mineral-rich Katanga in Congo. This is a region in Congo, which is in the southern part of the Congo, and is linking this region to the Atlantic Ocean. And obviously, they're doing this through Angola Lobito Port. Lobito is a city in Angola, in the south part of Angola, and they have a big port there. So they're linking Katanga with Lobito. So this includes a railway and a road network connecting the DRC, Zambia, and Angola. So they're providing an alternative export route for minerals like copper, cobalt, gold, which are crucial for global tech and green energy industries. And the difference about this is that everything is legal. So these three countries, okay, Zambia, DRC, and Angola, they manage to find a deal that is also suitable for these Western companies and Western countries. However, Rwanda, it was doing it completely illegally through a smuggling. This is some legal stuff going on here, and it's a threat. So why is the Lobito Corridor really important when it comes to the current tensions and the situation? So the first thing is that it reduces dependence on Rwanda and East African ports. Okay, obviously, the if you look at the map of Africa, the US is towards the west, is not towards the east. So why would you export through eastern ports where you can do it through western ports, and you cut quite a lot of travel time, okay, if you're sending it to the US, and even if you're sending it to Europe. Let's not forget Angola has a lot of business in Europe, mainly in Portugal, which is the former colonizers, okay? So the Lobito Corridor bypasses Rwanda entirely. It just bypasses Rwanda, okay? And this reduces its economic leverage over the DRC trade routes. So this threatens Rwanda's potential earnings, definitely, from trade facilitation and custom duties on minerals passing through its territory. Two, the challenges Rwandans alleged illicit mineral trade. So, as I told you before, this is all legal, whilst what Rwanda was doing was completely illegal. So now, many companies like Apple, like Chinese companies that are working on drones, AI, and EV vehicles, they will be able to find a different partner that they can trade with, but they are doing everything legally. Okay, so Rwanda has been heavily accused of smuggling conflict minerals or blood minerals like gold, coltan, tantalum, cobalt from the eastern DRC and exporting them as Rwandan products. So the Lobito Corridor provides DRC with the more secure and transparent route to export its minerals, limiting opportunities for Rwandan intermediaries. So, if fully operational, the corridor could weaken Rwandan's unofficial mining revenues. Obviously, this is something that the Congo is really interested in doing, and that's the reason why Mr. Felix Tshisekedi is he prefers a diplomatic solutions first with the Western countries rather than military. But soon he'll have to resource to military, depending on what the Western partners will do, and this will depend a lot on what position does the Congo take when it comes to Russia, dealing with Russia and allowing Russia to um, support them militarily. Russia and China. Okay, let's be careful here because there are big players here. Now, with the new administration in the US coming into power, obviously the Biden administration was extremely hostile, and any approach from Congo towards Russia and China will have been seen as a threat. Okay, now with the Trump administration, which has seen this Lobito project very positively, they are actually somehow finding peace with Russia. They don't want to blame Russia 100% for what's happening in Ukraine. And obviously, an approach towards Russia wouldn't be seen as a big threat like it was seen by the Biden administration. Okay. So the US and the EU has also a strategic interest in this Lobito corridor. So the United States, the European Union, and the G7 nations are heavily backing the Lobito corridor as part of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, which the acronym is PGII. This is to counter the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, so the Chinese are investing heavily all over the world, and they're getting access to natural resources in a way that the European countries wouldn't have access to if it wasn't through a war. So now they're finding a different way to counter this Chinese initiative with the Lobito corridor in the Congo. And I'm talking about just in the Congo, Angola, etc. Around the world, it's difficult for them to compete. Okay. Now, Western powers see the corridor as a way to reduce China's dominance over Africa's mineral supply chains, ensuring direct access to cobalt and copper needed for electrical vehicles and batteries. So this puts Rwanda, which has a strong economic tie with China, in a really complicated position as the US pushes for a supply chain that excludes Rwanda from the DRC's resources flow. Then you also have Angola's growing influence in the region. Okay, so Angola is a country that went through civil war in the 90s. It's one of the countries that they got independence the latest in Africa from the Portuguese colonizers. Okay, but since then Angola has seen a really big economic improvement in the country itself. They have approached China and many other countries. Obviously, there is one political country that dominates pretty much the political sphere, but the country itself have been improving economically, although there's quite high levels of poverty and unemployment, but is known as one of the countries that sells a lot of oil to other countries. The Angolan economy relies pretty much on the exports of oil, although they're trying to diversify the economy. But obviously, the influence of Angola in the region is improving and is increasing. So Angola, which manages the Lobito Corridor, has been positioning itself as a regional power and mediator in the DRC Rwanda conflict. Okay, so Angola has actively worked with the SAD, which is the Southern African Development Community, and the DRC's government to counter M23 rebels, indirectly challenging Rwanda's influence in the eastern part of the Congo. By controlling the major export route, okay, Angola is going to strengthen Kinshasa's hand in reducing Rwanda's economic leverage over the Congolese resources. So understand this. The Rwandans are threatened here. If they lose the access to the Congolese minerals and the position as the intermediators, they're going to be in huge economic problems here. So you can see here, one of the main exports is gold. If they lose access to the gold mines in the eastern part of the Congo, what are the exports they can do? Because coffee and tea, they also come from Congolese territories. So if the resolution of this conflict is Rwanda get out of the Congo will have the legal rights to push them out militarily. And if they refuse to do so, they'll be able to launch a war inside of Rwanda in order to remove that government that is not willing to have a friendly relationship with their neighbors. Okay? So Angola, South Africa, and other countries, they will be supporting the DRC. And there will be only one country that could support Rwanda militarily, and this is Uganda. And as we know historically, these two countries, they did try to take over Congo, but they were not able to. Bear in mind, Angola, South Africa, they're really strong military powers in Africa. And they will be able, through just like air coverage, all right, sending planes and helicopters, destroy the M23 rebels and put Kigali in a really difficult position here. So this will have a huge impact in Rwanda and mainly in the conflict in the DRC. If fully developed, the Lobito Corridor could economically isolate Rwanda by limiting its roles in the DRC mineral trade. Rwanda might lose influence over eastern DRC, where the M23 rebels are active, as Kinshasa strengthens its ties with Angola and the SADC. So this could explain why Rwanda continues to back the M23. Because if Kinshasa gains economic independence through the Lobito Corridor, Rwanda loses its bargaining power. So for Rwanda, this is all or nothing. And this is why they are threatening South Africa. They're actually not caring about what the possible consequences are going to be for the country, for the population. Because for many years, they have been relying heavily on the Congolese minerals in order to keep the economy afloat, in foreign aid in order to keep the economy afloat, in the expansion of territories within the Congo to keep the economy afloat, and tourism. But let's look at this in more detail. If the Western countries stop the foreign aid to Rwanda, the foreign direct investment, and they continue criticizing Rwanda, this is going to have a huge effect on the tourism sector, on the service sector as well. As I told you, unemployment is growing in Rwanda. So if foreign aid, foreign direct investment is cut, all these artists like John Legend that are visiting Rwanda and all these people that are promoting the visit of Rwanda, they are big football clubs, they will stop their support immediately, because otherwise this is going to affect their reputation as well. If they support a country that is actually exporting block minerals illegally, okay, then you have to also understand that if Rwanda continues advancing militarily so aggressively, they're going to find other countries like Burundi, Congo, Angola, South Africa, that they will be there to counter the advance and the intentions as well. So if the mining sector is no more, Rwanda is not going to have access to that. Therefore, massive revenue is not going to be there. So the Lobito Corridor disrupts Rwanda's strategic position by giving the DRC a direct export route that bypasses Rwandan control channels. It weakens Rwanda's influence over Eastern Congo mineral wealth, and it aligns with Western efforts to sideline China, which has deep ties to Rwanda. Angola's role in the corridor also strengthens its regional power at Rwandan's expense. So while the full impact is yet to unfold, the Lobito Corridor undermines Rwanda's long-term economic and geopolitical interest, adding another layer to the ongoing crisis in the eastern DRC. So, although I pretty much link everything to this project, which I think it is, there are many other factors that we need to take into consideration, okay? And there are many people that are saying that this is due to ethnical problems or ethnic problems in the eastern part of the Congo because the Congolese government, they have been confronting tribes one against the other. This is completely untrue. Completely untrue. This has all to do with geopolitics, with how the Congo, okay, is also linked to everything that is taking place in the world today. Everything that's happening in the Congo is linked to the growing power of multipluralism, the reduced power of unipluralism, and the hegemonic power of the United States, and how the balance of power in the international sphere is balancing now, where you have African countries like, for example, Mali, okay, like Chad, like Niger, like Burkina Faso, that they find an alternative to Western support and Western power, and the bypassing the Western coercion in order to force them to accept Western troops and militaries in the countries. Now they can find support from other countries such as China and Russia. But bear in mind this Lobito Corridor, which is fully supported by Western countries. So the Western countries, they continue a different approach now. Okay, Emmanuel Macron has been one of the leaders that have been leading this different approach towards African countries. Okay, being closer to them. Okay, be more sympathetic towards them. Although his words publicly do not help, but the approach is different from previous French presidents, which have been way more aggressive and imperial and colonialist when it comes to African affairs. So this is my analysis on the effect of the criticism and the stop of or the potential complete stop of foreign aid, foreign direct investment into Rwanda, how this could affect the country. And I also gave you more information on the Lobito Corridor and how can this be the main cause of the recent M23 advance in the eastern part of the Congo, because they are taking main cities where the minerals are located. So I hope you like this. Please bookmark this video, share it with your friends, share it with your family. If you like it, just do it, okay? We are on other social media platforms, so please follow us. And as always, I'll continue informing you.